It helps the algorithm. People like cats on YouTube, man.
Kitty! You know what?
Yeah.
That's a good point. Let's go single Reef.
Yep.
Let's go big Reef. Big Reef. All right, we're gonna have to go back here.
What?
Oh, look at that superstar! Look at the boy. That is Commander Geordie LaForge, folks. All right. Sorry. Time to unplug. What are we talking about? Well, this starts a little bit like, all right, you got to stick with me here because it starts out and you're like, you want to roll your eyes because it talks about Fox News and it talks about January 6th and it talks about their admissions of Oy vey. Okay. Yes, you were watching Geordie the Cat and missed all that. Yes, thank you, Eric. I do all that.
Oy vey at us?
I just oy veyed everybody.
Did you really oy vey?
God,
what is wrong with you?
Yeah. Nolan Higdon, Project Censored. By the way, Project Censored also, they have a publishing arm and they just published, Kevin Gostola published his first ever book about Julian Assange. Go and check that out over at Project Censored. There's a link to it. Or over at Shadowproof for Kevin Gastoler. But journalistic malpractice on trial, which I think is kind of funny. This is a little one-sided, but then it starts to come back the right way, and we're going to bring it back to more relevance as we finish out. But start off. Oh, this is a direct evidence of knowing falsity, exclaimed Ron Neil Anderson Jones. That's a few names. Ronell Anderson Jones. He's the professor of law at University of Utah. He said that in an interview with Jon Stewart, right? Jones noted that in most defamation cases, quote, the likelihood that you'll find evidence of them that saying that this is a lie and that we know we'd like to move forward with it anyway is deeply unlikely. However, in the case of Dominion Voting Systems v. Fox News, quote, the filing contains just this trove of evidence of emails and text messages and internal memos that are rare both in terms of the volume and the evidence and as to the directness of the evidence, unquote. This sentiment was echoed by Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe, who we are not really big fan of, but he also noted that he has never seen a defamation case with such overwhelming proof that the defendant admitted in writing that it was making up fake information in order to increase its viewership and its revenues. Sensationalization is really important and to call out. So, in the $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit, Dominion accuses Fox News of falsely reporting that Dominion's voting systems fraudulently delivered victory to Joe Biden in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Now, I'm going to say right now, Joe Biden is the president. He was elected the president, and machines are just wonderful.
Come on, man.
Court documents obtained by other media outlets reveal that hosts and other high-ranking Fox News Channel officials, including the chairman and CEO of Fox's parent company, News Corp, Rupert Murdoch, knew these reports were false, but aired them because they were more concerned with confirming their audience belief that Donald Trump won the election. This is what the lawsuit claims. And this is what all of the court documents claim to certify. The evidence presented in the court documents speaks to the journalistic malpractice that plagues the cable news industry. Journalistic malpractice refers to professional journalists who privilege ideological bias and profits over truth in their reporting. Fox News Channel is patient zero for the plague of journalistic malpractice. It was created in 1996 by Rupert Murdoch and the late Roger Ailes, who was a media consultant for several Republican presidents, as a political project to sell conservative culture and policy to the American public with pro-conservative propaganda disguised as journalism. That's absolutely true. That's fact. I mean, that's not even opinion. That they'll even admit that themselves, and they have admitted that. And they're not even allowed to be shown in certain countries because they're not news. That's straight opinion, but they call themselves news. So they falsely claim that other media outlets did not cover the conservative Tea Party rallies, which they did. They say that they've utilized videos out of context to inflate the perceived size of conservative protests. Guess what? So is NBC. Labeled former President Barack Obama a racist. Well, MSNBC's painted everyone a racist. Declared Osama bin Laden. Yeah. Declared Osama bin Laden as a John Kerry supporter. I remember that. They perpetuated discredited reports on the existence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So did every other network.
Even though wasn't he famously a Condoleezza supporter?
Osama?
Wasn't that him?
No.
Right, like they found it was one of them.
They had pictures of her somewhere, doing something. Maybe?
Yeah, yes, like he was fond of her, sent her love letters and stuff.
Maybe.
Apparently.
But they also introduced digitally altered photos to fabricate Black Lives Matter violence and make New York Times reporters appear to be revolting. Yeah, no, they stink on ice. That's a joke out of Mel Brooks.
Which we know what caused that violence.
Yeah.
So.
Woo! Liberals were right to assert that such chicanery was propaganda, not journalism. But before liberal readers scold Fox News viewers, they should remind themselves that the plague of journalistic malpractice has also infected liberal-leaning cable networks such as CNN and MSNBC. Like I said, stick with us.
No.
Researchers and scholars have noted...
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah. Researchers and scholars have noted that the advent of cable... With the advent of cable and then the internet, saw news media outlets shift from attaining the largest audience possible to focusing on a more specific or narrow demographic of the audience. While Fox News Channel sought to cater to Republican Party viewing voters, CNN and MSNBC did the same for Democratic Party voters. Well, not so much anymore, because what they really want is the centrist. They want the middle. This gave the Democratic Party influence over programming that was tantamount to what the Republican Party long enjoyed at Fox. Right. They tried to turn MSNBC and CNN into Democratic Party TV and did for a while. Now it's just national security state TV. When Senator Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential bid posed a threat to their desired candidate Hillary Clinton in 2016, leaders from the Democratic Party admitted that they worked to undermine his campaign. Pro-Democratic Party outlets like MSNBC and CNN aided in this effort by, and this is no surprise to any of us that were Bernie fans in 2020 or in 2016, but in 2016, remember how they created an unfavorable debate schedule? I think they scheduled the debate on Christmas Eve. They gave Clinton twice as much and more favorable coverage. They published 16 negative articles about Sanders in the Washington Post, which is owned, of course, by Jeff Bezos, within 16 hours. They ghost-edited previous news articles to diminish his quarter-century of accomplishments. They invited his opponent's surrogates to attack his character under the auspices of being objective journalists without ever revealing what their connections were. This smear of Sanders, of course, continued in 2020. And again, we know this really well. When the Democratic Party-leaning news outlets misled the public about his polling numbers. How many times did they show him in third place when he was really in first? And literally the numbers showed that he was in first, but they ranked him in third. Or they just left him off entirely. Now, look, I'm not going to rehash this, and I'm not bitter and sour grapes anymore, because I realize that even if he had gotten anywhere close, that he wasn't going to be what we wanted him to be. He would be closer to what he is now, and that would have been completely unacceptable, and we'd have been screaming just like we are right now at him, just like we do at Joe Biden. CNN's Abby Phillips drew gasps for ignoring Sanders' claim that he never said that a woman couldn't be president. I remember that. Thanks, Elizabeth Warren. James Carville, the Raging Cajun on MSNBC, made the baseless claim that Russia was supporting Sanders. Yep, they Russiagated him. And then, of course, we remember Chris Matthews, who literally had to end up resigning because of what happened, comparing Sanders' primary victory to the Nazis' defeat of the French and saying that we'd all be hung in Central Park. And then he had to resign because he was completely out of his mind. Journalistic malpractice also plagued COVID-19 coverage. I told you, stick with us. This gets better. Starting in 2020, CNN's Chris Cuomo utilized his platform with the approval of CNN leadership to host his brother, then New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The jovial segment seemed like campaign advertisements, as Chris treated Andrew as the antithesis to then President Trump, a competent executive who took decisive action to address the COVID-19 pandemic. Although, the Democratic versus Republican framing attracted partisan audiences, in reality, Andrew Cuomo and Trump were all too similar. Yeah, he's blue Trump. Both conceal the actual number of COVID-19 deaths in their jurisdiction. Both put patients at risk with kickbacks to industry partners, and both utilize media contacts to stifle press reports about their alleged sexual crimes. It's almost like they're all playing for the same team. How about that?
I like it better than anything else.
How about it? Uniparty.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep.
We're fucked.
Yes, Misty, we are. Partisan falsehoods in cable news includes the production of powerful, long-running false stories designed to convince their audiences that the other party is wrong and crazy. For years now, conservatives and Fox News Channel perpetuated the baseless QAnon conspiracy, which of course alleges that a cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles, mainly in the Democratic Party, runs global affairs, but Trump will break up the conspiracy. Yeah. That's the absurdity of this conspiracy.
He's gonna drain the swamp.
Right. The absurdity of this conspiracy is tantamount to liberal-leaning news media's reporting on Russiagate, which sought to discredit Republicans. Since 2016, Russiagate, the story that Russia meddled in and influenced the outcome of the U.S. election in 2016, had direct connections to Donald Trump and his associates, and worked to help defeat Hillary Clinton for the presidency. Oh yeah, also somehow involved Julian Assange. Was perpetuated by a series of false stories from the Democratic Party-friendly media, including not just Democratic Party-friendly media, but social media we know as well. Russia hacking a Vermont power plant, never happened. Putting a bounty on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan, complete bullshit. Shifting election outcomes around the world, yes, we do that. Turning Trump into an asset since 1987, that's the P-tape off the Steele dossier. And then, of course, labeling the Hunter Biden laptop story as fake news, which we know, of course, now that it was not. And Glenn Greenwald knew at the time that it wasn't. And he ended up leaving The Intercept over it. Conservatives rightly see this reporting and believe liberals are insane. Well, they're not 100% wrong. Both factions need to look in a mirror. While audiences can clearly see the insanity in other networks' viewers, they rarely seem to see it in themselves. Well, then come to us, because we see it in both of them. And clearly, Nolan over at Project Censored, he's seeing it too. Okay? Indeed, in the same week that CNN and others were having a schadenfreude moment over the Dominion v. Fox case, they hosted a commentator on the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, without disclosing that he lobbied for the train company Norfolk Southern. These mother... This example of hypocrisy and journalistic malpractice is not only costly to CNN's credibility, but to our democracy as well. CNN has no credibility, Nolan. They have none. They're an advertising network. They're an advertising company with TV programming in between. Without a robust media system that privileges truth over preaching to the choir, the public will have endless debates devoid of facts on key issues such as critical race theory, vaccine efficacy, the origins of the COVID-19 virus, climate change, transgender issues, Ukraine, mysterious balloons, and more. Democratic disclosure will be reduced to seeing Republicans as MAGA hat-wearing, Blue Lives Matter flag-waving gun nuts, and Democrats as medical mask-wearing, this house cares about everything front lawn signs adorning, professional victims, and virtue signalers. Holy shit, I literally was saying that earlier today. These characters have never been really accurate, but as long as the nation is infected with the plague of journalistic malpractice, they will certainly be perpetuated. It will surely be perpetuated. I can't talk tonight. While the courts are unlikely to deliver solace... While the courts are unlikely to deliver solace from political party propaganda disguised as journalism, they have provided some wisdom. Both Rachel and Tucker, and the fact that I don't even need to use their last names is pathetic, have been brought into court for spreading false information and were exonerated because judges concluded that no reasonable person would believe that either of them were telling the truth. Yeah, that's true. They said that they were making it up and that no reasonable person would believe that they were actually trying to represent the truth and not selling a partisan lie. That's good advice, and viewers would be wise to remember it every time they consider watching cable news. Well, as a matter of fact, yeah. Well, thank you, Ghost Art, about Whitney Webb. She's amazing. Yes, will pre-crime technology solve crimes? That's no. Of course, we know that it won't. So,
I mean, we saw Tom Cruise already solve this, right?
Tom Cruise wants to come out the closet.
Tom Cruise.
I was watching an interview where the South Park guys were talking about how do they talk about Tom Cruise, and they can't actually say what they want to say, and they're like, well, but can we say that he won't come out the closet? Like, they literally had to put him in a closet. They're like, well, you can do that. So they had him in a closet, and they had like every single person come up to the Tom, you got to come out the closet. They had Nicole Kidman do it, and John Travolta do it. All the Scientologists. It was classic. I mean, that's
Mel
and that's
Gibson.
like 20 some odd years old. It's brilliant. All right, so
Hello, my baby.
not very often, but once in a while. And it's funny, about a year ago, I got fired up to write an article, but last week or about a week and a half ago, I got fired up again. And I realized that this is a huge lift, and it's crazy, and it's unrealistic in a lot of ways. And what am I going to do? But at the same time, this is kind of why we are where we are. And we're going to talk a little bit about this now. So let's talk a little bit about, and then we're going to show a Joe video, and we're going to have some fun, and then we'll get the boats. So this is our medicine. We have to unplug from corporate media. Why? Because they're controlling a narrative which societally makes horrors acceptable by ignoring them, dulling their cruelty, or outright lying about conditions. We need to convince others to unplug too. What? Yes. So I know that I'm far from the first person to recognize or write about this, but after a ton of analysis, talking it over with a ton of different people from different perspectives, but destroying the influence peddling machine that is the corporate controlled media is the most important thing that we can do, because it is literally brainwashing everybody around us. I have never in my life felt more like I am living in the Matrix than I feel right now. I despise the use of the term mainstream media or MSM to describe just how insidious this apparatus is and how much it's controlled by those at the executive level by whom they hire and promote. It's technically not even accurate to use the word mainstream to describe this, as these are not societally accepted mainstream thoughts and ideas. They're bought and paid for narratives geared to sell us on the idea that people came up with this set of acceptable parameters all by ourselves, which just happens to align to their sponsors' profit-driven agenda that's selling you stuff. It's not mainstream. The entire narrative of political team sports is a facade, as we know. Okay? As the Democrats and Republicans all serve the same masters. We just talked about this. The donor class, BlackRock, Vanguard, Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Open Society, Adelson family, Walton family, Koch brothers, Pierre Omidyar, Leonard Leo, and that's just to name a handful. They're people and orgs who spend gobs of cash to steer conversations, which then becomes the accepted narrative, which in turn influences popular opinion, while they simultaneously make campaign contributions to both major parties to control lawmaking from quote-unquote both sides. But they win no matter which side wins elections. Because you can't win when the system is rigged. Except there's another side that's never or rarely given consideration or real representation in corporate-controlled media. It's not even in the conversation, and it's the side of everyone else. The people who don't identify as Democrat or Republican or want something better. A system that prioritizes people over profits. Independents and non-voters are a massive group in this country with zero representation. Ding, ding. Congress, K Street, Wall Street, military-industrial complex, the technology-industrial complex, all with the propaganda tool of the corporate-controlled media, is really a uniparty of revolving door jobs for the congresspeople and their staffers that feeds and serves this duopoly mindset. Thank you so much to Whitney Webb for the uniparty term. Don't get it twisted. Democrats are equally as corrupt as Republicans. We have to stop acting like Democrats aren't equally trying to kill us with the military and pharma industrial complexes, or that they're not trying hard to control the people's thought and conversation through social and corporate media, which is embedded with ex-government and current government outsourced employees throughout their ranks, using censorship, cancel culture, and algorithm manipulation. And if you don't believe me, read the Twitter files and read Alan McLeod. These are not right-wing talking points. Congress, whom do not represent us, but rely on our vote and consent to execute the monstrous policies that their donors write through their lobbyists and inflict on all of us in the name of fear, control, and profits. Their owners and donors use the corporate-controlled media to keep the people divided while they run away with record profits. It's keeping blue and red fighting while they all run away with the green. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. Yeah. They're anti-corporate control versus worker control, meaning these talking points, and anti-corruption perspectives. They may not be the popular thing today, mostly because the public has been brainwashed to think that blue versus red is a binary construct, using the corporate-controlled media to steer the narrative towards aligning what's best for corporate as North Star every time. Makes me crazy. Everything is framed from the corporate perspective. And it's why third parties in the U.S. are immediately dismissed by most, mainly because money drives politics and, quote, and I think this was Matt Taibbi who said this week, corporations don't want to write a third check. They already write two. Why do they need to write a third? Over the past few years now, this, like I said, unplug. I personally have mostly unplugged from corporate-controlled media, especially news. It's more plain than ever to see that the owner class uses fear to control the masses through the evening network news, 24-hour news channels, quote-unquote, which are just news opinion, then set you up for trauma through drama shows and police procedurals, which is really propaganda, mixed in with movies that self-aggrandize and sensationalize the U.S. military, sitcoms loaded with stereotypes that train people what to laugh at, and with laugh tracks and who to laugh at, and it's disgusting. The networks and corporate media effectively control and message who should win on election night, setting us up for weeks or months leading up to a vote. Even cases of them declaring political races over while people are still waiting in line to vote. We've seen this.
Yep.
It's amazing when you disconnect from it all, how obvious it is that they're selling fear when you walk through a room and hear a corporate news segment, be it MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, doesn't really matter. But here's our little project, our little homework assignment, everyone. Next time you watch or hear a news segment, I want you to pay attention to a few things. Number one, how little of the story do they actually tell? Half the time, they're trying to set something up. Second, what parts of the story they did choose to tell? And ask yourself, why did they only tell that part? What critical parts of the story did they leave out? And ask yourself, why? Well, guess what? It's usually bad for them, the media itself, their advertiser, or a corporation. And whose perspective is the story being told from, which is always, almost like I said, from the corporation's view, in the name of protecting profit over people, and or taking the police's word without questioning whether it's actually what's happened. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. That's our corporate networks. You know, more than ever, it's come down to we the people versus the ruling owner class and their selected representatives, lawmakers. Representative, right? They're selected, not elected, selected. We need to do our best to unplug from this, to recognize it for the fear-mongering it is, and convince all our friends and family around us to do the same. Netflix, Disney Plus, the NFL, Peacock, Amazon Prime Video, all of it. As much as you could possibly unplug from it all. It's all geared to keep us distracted, to change the conversation before you can figure out how badly we're all getting screwed. Squirrel, over there, see? Chinese balloon, train derailment. Unions. Share this article. Listen and share the song Red Pill by Jesse Jett, which is below, but it's little explained. It's got curses, earmuffs, kids. And listen on Bandcamp where you can hook them up and listen to the whole song for free. On Spotify here, there's only a preview. But but Red Pill really talks a lot about what I'm talking about. You know, how I feel like I'm just, everything I see on TV is propaganda. Everything is trying to sell you on a narrative. And the minute you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's like, I kind of wish that I was back to where I didn't see it, because it sucks, but you can't not see it. And once you do, man, it sucks, but you have to know. But when they're selling red versus blue, pay attention to who's making the green. It's usually the people selling you red versus blue, like Congress. And another line that Jesse quoted, if you really want to know who the product they're selling, I can tell you, I can take you where the mirrors are. And that's from Shepherd of Hopes, all about wonderful Bernie Sanders. So,
Bernie Sanders.
What was this? This was a tweet. I don't know what this was doing in here, but so what's the alternative? Right. This is all about people who are being censored. This is it was a tweet that had some of the things. Yeah. Not one administration since Kennedy has shown that it's representative of the people, yet another egregious lie. That said, these memes are not meant to be directed at you. They belong here. And it's all about how both parties are screwing us. There are 4 different funny memes, and I didn't realize that I didn't click on each one. Anyway, what is the alternative? Well, everybody says we have to provide answers. We can't just complain and sit here and scream about how badly it sucks, and I agree. So what's the alternative? Well, it's been really challenging to figure out who's not selling a narrative and looking to uncover facts and corruption. Also, the people selling you those narratives have a profit incentive to smear and dismiss the independents looking to expose the corruption, secret relationships, behind-the-scenes deals we never even hear about. So, at Indie Left Media, we've assembled a website, which is the indiemediaawards.com. Slipping. I need the site. I need the sound. indiemediaawards.com, with whom we have found to be the most. Thank you. We have found these to be the most accurate, reliable, and consistent. You gotta read. And consistent, user-funded, independent sources of news and information over the past few years, whom we have had the primary mission of getting to the truth. Whom have had these amazing journalists, investigative reporters, and seekers of truth have had the primary mission of getting to the truth and exposing whom is behind profit-driven agendas. But do your own research. Find the sources you trust to be reliable and consistent. Below is the post from the day that we released the list, and I did a live stream talking a little bit about each honoree, and that was the Substack. And you can see that, and I believe that that post is pinned over at indiemediatoday.substack.com or indiemedia.today. I'm going to go back to the 2-shot for 1 second, and let me get out of here. Hit escape, and I did not queue this up, but I can get it real quick. So I want to see what everybody else thinks of this, because
how dare you?
Yes, thank you, Greta. I know. I need everyone with me on this. Like, I feel like I'm screaming into the ether, and like there's a few people that are like, yeah, I'm with you, and I feel you, and you're right. Most people are just like, yeah, meh. And then of course we had one detractor who shall not be named go, yeah, but of course it's not just corporate media, it's independent media doing it too. And I'm just like, wait, what? No. No, it's not independent media, but this is a person who has a problem with certain members of independent media. So I've got Joe's video where he has Jimmy Dore explain propaganda pretty well. So we're going to do that for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and go do some boats. So check it out, folks.
Yeah. Make sure you share your channel with me.
You got it.
U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush pushes for a land war against Iraq. But polls show the U.S. public is split 50-50 on that idea. Then comes this eyewitness testimony before a congressional committee. From a 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl.
Behind what?
The claim is she cannot be identified for fear of reprisals.
While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
The U.S. public is outraged. The result?
So do you see what just happened? That's in front of Congress. That's happening. They get a 15-year-old girl to tell a lie, more propaganda, that she witnessed Iraqi soldiers taking babies out of incubators in a hospital and putting them on the cold floor to die. That was all made up. Sounds very similar to, and why did they make that lie? Why did they have that? Why did they orchestrate that in front of Congress? Because the military industrial complex needed us to go into Kuwait, baby. That's why. Sounds very similar to when the establishment wants to go into war in Syria. They think of he's gassing his own people. But he's winning the war, right? Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense, right? No, it doesn't. And then when you point this stuff out, they call you a conspiracy theorist, even though the real conspiracy is the government. The biggest pusher of conspiracies in the history of our country is the goddamn government, which has lied us into every goddamn war since World War II. So what was the result of that lie? I remember when it happened. I was in college, and it was reported nonstop on CNN.
Support for land war zooms. It's a turning point.
The result? The support for the war zoomed. It was a turning point. Now, Jimmy, how do you know that was a lie? Well, let's watch.
Desert Storm is launched. 135,000 Iraqis are killed. An estimated 1 million Iraqis, many of them children and old people, then die as a result of 10 years of sanctions. One small problem. There never were any incubator baby deaths, not one. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's investigative flagship program, The Fifth Estate, reveals the girl to be the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter, given her lines and coached in acting by the giant American PR firm Hill & Knowlton. It's one phase in a $10 million joint U.S.-Kuwaiti campaign of deception. This man is lying.
I myself buried 40 newborn babies that had been taken from their incubators.
This man is lying.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
There were a lot of people who participated in a conspiracy. Yes, an out-and-out conspiracy of fake organizations, false documents, fraud, and disinformation. So, if a new man named Bush is in the White House and helps engineer a brazen deception in order to achieve global geopolitical goals, as well as domestic and personal ones, it wouldn't be a first, would it?
Everybody go follow SDFU Shitlib3 on Twitter. Jim Jam, your hair was banging in that segment, I have to say. Yeah, propaganda. That is how they do it.
Nice news hoodie too.
That was a nice news sweatshirt. And I like the little Michigan J Frog. And I would show George Carlin doing the game is rigged. It's all bad for you. But I think I'd get in trouble if we did that one. So I'm gonna skip that one for tonight. But that's also linked in the Substack article, which I wrote and I just read and showed you all tonight. And thank you so much for sticking with me while I read that.